Alright guys, insane news development हो रहा है. In this video we'll talk about the US-Iran peace deal और Trump क्या बोला है, and recent news of the gangs in Britain जो अभी हुआ था, and about the recent attack on Russia by Ukraine. So let's talk about it. The most craziest thing ये देखा मैं आज न्यूज़ में कि ट्रम्प इज एक्चुअली सेइंग कि वो ईरान को अटैक कर देगा फिर से अगर वो लोग पीस डील को ब्रेक करेगा. आई मीन दिस इज एब्सोल्युटली इनसेन क्योंकि राइट नाउ वो लोग पीस डील का एक्सटेंशन के लिए साइन कर रहा था. इमेजिन सेइंग दिस राइट आफ्टर साइनिंग अ पीस डील.
Memorandum of Understanding with Iran, formally marking the ceasefire extension with the Iranian regime. He was in France's Versailles Palace alongside French President Emmanuel Macron. And we know that Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, was the one responsible for signing the document from the Iranian capital of Tehran. Now, earlier in the day, President Trump talked about what this agreement means and what happens if it isn't enforced.
It's a memorandum of understanding. If it doesn't get done in 60 days, that's all right. We go back to bombing. I don't want to do that because it's so good. But we might have to because we're never going to let them have a nuclear weapon. But they've agreed not to, and you'll see that very clearly in the agreement. We're not putting up money. Only if they're doing things right. If they're doing things right, if people want to invest, they can invest.
On Wednesday, a U.S. official read the agreement to reporters. Within this deal includes an immediate end to the war on all fronts, including Lebanon, respect to sovereignty and territorial integrity of Iran. The final deal must be reached within 60 days, but there is a possibility for an extension if those negotiations are going well. Now, the United States will fully end the naval blockade of Iranian ports. The Iranians will ensure safe shipping passage in the Strait of Hormuz and no charge of tolls for at least 60 days. There is going to be a reconstruction plan with many Gulf allies. This is going to be discussed in the days ahead. And the U.S. will agree to end May sanctions on a schedule. This is going to be a tiered system. The Iranians aren't going to receive all of this relief at once. It will be performance-based. And some of those frozen funds will be available for use to the Iranian regime if they are making progress toward ending their nuclear program. Now, on the issue of negotiations, Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Khalibaf and top negotiator said this.
The difference between the negotiations now and the previous periods is that today, the flag of victory is in the field, which both enemies and friends have admitted. Our people saw the glory of the armed forces too, even though they were against the well-equipped enemy.
This is very much wait and see. Many details still have to be discussed in relation to Iran's nuclear program. They have made commitments in this memorandum of understanding, and now Iran's top negotiators will meet with American mediators to try and work out a path forward. We know the Qataris are involved in this process to actually make the schedule of when these meetings are going to take place. Guys?
Yeah, this is wait and see for sure, Trey. And I think that the question over success of this deal all boils down to if Iran cares more about strengthening its economy or if it cares more about keeping its nuclear program. Given what you know about this regime, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, it's an important question, and the Iranians will have to make that decision. But the president yesterday from France made a few important points. He is willing to have the Iranians see sanctions relief if their performance on the international stage is positive. He's willing to let them have some ballistic missiles if their performance is positive. And so, again, this is all performance-based. And if the Iranians are unwilling to make those concessions, the president indicated he is willing to resume military action against the Iranian regime. And so these next 2 months are really going to be critical, and we can expect a lot of detailed discussions as it relates to Iran's highly enriched uranium that is buried deep underground, getting rid of those centrifuges, and also the other enriched material that isn't such a pure form of uranium, but also could be reverse engineered if the Iranians in the future wanted to increase the purity. And so all of these things have to be addressed. And again, it's Iran's behavior in the region. This is a memorandum of understanding. It is not the final deal between the United States and Iran. And really, this should be looked at as an extension of the ceasefire agreement. It's the president giving the Iranians a chance to change their behavior and normalize ties on the international stage. And if they're unwilling to do so, the president says he will resume the bombing campaign.
All right, Trey Yang's live for us in Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you. Let's bring in Chief Strategist of the Middle East Forum and Forum.
And at the end of the day मेरे को यही समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि is this actually going to be a permanent solution या फिर is this temporary, क्योंकि seriously I don't understand the goal here. अगर ceasefire permanent नहीं हो रहा है तो इतना पैसा खर्च करने का point ही क्या है?
Has one. He's skeptical. He told The Hill, history teaches that giving billions of dollars to theocratic lunatics who want to murder us is not a good idea. I think the president is receiving some very poor advice on this deal. How do you view what the president, what the United States and Iran have entered into?
This is step one. This is not the final deal, as Trey mentioned. And to talk to Senator Cruz, nobody is giving them billions of dollars until they have done the thing the war set out to accomplish. They must give access to all of their nuclear facilities and destroy the enriched uranium that they have to our satisfaction. This does not, we're not going to play, don't go look over here, you can't look over here. We need full access to everything. We need to witness the destruction of the nuclear material. And then and only then does any forward-moving, monetary incentives occur. And that's a pretty big step. If they're willing to do that, then the war was worth it.
Yeah, and point 8 of this memorandum is where it states that the Islamic Republic of Iran reaffirms that it shall not procure or develop a nuclear weapon. And President Trump has said a few times now that he added that word procure into the deal because he wanted to make sure that Iran couldn't buy a nuclear weapon along with developing it. But that line that Iran does not want a nuclear weapon is something that the regime leaders have said time and time again when clearly all signs point to the fact that they do. So what do you think about this? Do you think that the decision makers now will actually fully agree to denuclearize over the next 60 days?
I don't think their desire for a nuclear weapon has changed. It's a game changer for anyone. Any nation that gets a nuclear weapon then has leverage on the entire rest of the world. But we made it too painful for them to continue down the path they were on to developing one. And that's important. Destroying all their conventional military capabilities, but also the blockade shutting off all oil revenue for almost more than a month plus, put them in a position where their economy was about to crash and burn. They can't afford that. Now, President Trump has taken domestic political considerations into account, and he wants the oil to flow and gas prices to drop because once he's through the midterms, he's got even more flexibility if the Iranians do not decide to abide by their end of the deal.
Yeah, that's a good point. Everybody talks about what the president is going to do leading up to the midterm elections. There's also that 2-year period after the midterms to consider. And you mentioned revenue. There's also the unfreezing of funds as part of this deal. Here's what the president said about that yesterday.
We have taken a lot of their money, and we have their money. We have taken their money. It's not our money. It's their money, and we froze it. At a certain point in time, I guess we're going to have to give it back. If we didn't give it back, nobody would ever invest in the dollar again.
Iranian officials, though, have estimated they could generate about $10 billion over just a 60-day period from oil exports. How do you think that Iran will use that money? The obvious concern is rebuilding their military and terror proxies.
The difficulty for them is they don't have any factories to build their military back. All of that was turned into rubble. And that puts them on a much longer track to try and rebuild anything. And we'll be able to see if they're doing that. We have such visibility into what they're doing. We can still fly drones. We still have satellite coverage of everything they're doing. If they go down the path of rearming in a way that's dangerous to the future of the region, or doing anything at all related to the military or nuclear program that we don't like, we can end whatever things we've already agreed to and resume the pain. But right now, we're offering them a chance to see, do you want to actually do some negotiation? Do you want to rejoin the community of nations and have some prosperity and security? Or are you going down the path of destruction? They have a chance to change their ways and see what happens.
They have a chance. 60 days from June 17th, which was yesterday, is August 16th. A whole lot or very little can happen in that time frame. We will all wait and see. Jim, thanks for joining us this morning.
एंड द थिंग इज कि जब यूएसए बिजी था ईरान के साथ पीस टॉक्स के लिए, यूक्रेन रशिया को अटैक कर दिया था, विच इज एब्सोल्युटली डायबॉलिकल. लाइक जब पूरा वर्ल्ड एक चीज की तरफ डिस्ट्रैक्टेड है, दे आर डूइंग देयर ओन थिंग.
Under Ukraine hitting Russia right in the heart. Plumes of black smoke could be seen following a Ukrainian drone strike on a major oil refinery in Moscow. Wow, look at the lid blowing off of that. It's all part of Kiev's biggest attack on Russia's capital since the start of the war more than 4 years ago. Foreign correspondent Jeff Paul live from London. They've really bloodied Russia's nose here.
Yeah, John, and the oil refinery targeted is one of the largest in Russia and is responsible for producing more than a third of the region's fuel. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says if Ukraine is going to burn, Moscow will burn too. This is what the attack looked like. Dozens of drones swarming the Moscow area, blanketing the city in black smoke and even causing black rain to fall on cars. While officials say the fires have been largely contained, the strikes are putting more pressure on Russia's fuel supplies. One Russian independent news outlet reports 1 in every 4 gas stations in the country is now under some sort of restriction. President Zelensky says part of the motivation for the attack was to get Russian President Vladimir Putin back to the negotiating table. And during the G7 summit this week, President Trump said he has spoken to both Zelensky and Putin.
Something's going to happen. They're losing a lot of people, a lot of soldiers are losing soldiers. Both are losing a lot. Russia's losing more because they're the offensive ones. And when you're offensive in war, you lose more. Pretty simple.
Now, also at the G7, French President Emmanuel Macron, who says there's a shared commitment on Ukraine. When he was asked if he thought President Trump would follow through, Macron said Trump has always done what he said he would do. John?
All right, Jeff Paul with the update for us. Jeff, thank you.
एंड द नेक्स्ट थिंग इज द वर्स्ट. लाइक यूके में चल क्या रहा है, रिसेंटली वो लोग अनडॉक्यूमेंटेड गैंग्स का डिटेल को रिलीज किया था, विच इज डिस्टर्बिंग और फ्रस्ट्रेटिंग. हाउ कैन एनीवन एक्चुअली इग्नोर दिस? लेकिन ब्रिटेन वाले लोग आर आउट ऑफ देयर माइंड. दे आर सो एब्सोल्युटली कुक्ड.
The UK became completely conquered as law enforcement agencies have been compromised and weaponized against the citizens. But then the story naturally leads to the migrant rap gangs when the reports released yesterday from the UK equivalent of US Congress. And as zero exaggeration, these are some of the most disturbing crimes against kids ever. But for years now, the mainstream media pass it off as conspiracy.
In a 2014 report, it was found that about 1,400 kids had been in gangs of men in the northern English town of Rotherham beginning in 1997, lasting more than a decade. Today, Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, responded by suggesting that Musk was, quote, spreading lies and misinformation.
He's meddling and putting out misinformation and doing all kinds of things that he's done here and seeing if the same tricks work elsewhere. And I think he just likes it now. This is what amuses him. He's obviously not paying attention to testing.
UK media deflects to white people.
It's fine. 250,000 of your women are being by Muslims. It's okay.
Again,
it's fine.
utterly ridiculous statement.
Go to Birmingham, go to Manchester.
Utterly ridiculous statement.
As I've said repeatedly, the vast majority of sexual crime against women in my country is committed by white men.
Where liberals think a 250,000 girls being rapped is funny.
The gang inquiry report is out. I'm going to try not to laugh because it feels mean.
And their activists respond by claiming it's racist.
It's gone. Off our streets. Whose streets? Our streets. Whose streets? Our streets. When migrants are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. What do we do? Stand up.
As they recycle the same replies every single time, they refuse to take responsibility for the heinous crimes they enable. You're crazy for thinking that. Okay, well, white people are worse, until noticing this pattern makes you racist. Except this time we're not playing political games. We're talking about the rap of a 250,000 kids, predominantly from one known group that the UK outright refuses to acknowledge. As the entire document is over 200 pages of the worst things you could read, because the authorities were worried about being perceived as racist, and in some instances, actually assisted in the rap. And this is an incredibly difficult read I don't recommend to anybody, but then again, this isn't fiction. These are years of rampant crimes against UK kids that not only did the authorities allow, but somehow UK taxpayers actually funded. And this is no exaggeration. Apparently, UK welfare services actually attended the wedding of a child bride, then gave her rapper's parents money. Then when another kid's parents tried to stop the rap, a cop said, "Don't call them Asian, that's racist. Be glad she's being taught a different culture." Taking the girl back to the rap house, telling them, "Have fun with her." And when another kid complained on Facebook about the rap, the UK police came to arrest her within half an hour. And I gotta be honest, I couldn't even get through half that full report. But now it makes sense that their media was so desperate to ignore this story, as if this gets out, I genuinely believe the British citizens will revolt. As obviously, there have been zero mainstream stories on this, except that outlets reporting that Lowe, that UK equivalent of a congressman, is the most dangerous man you've never heard of. And when you Google him, the first article is from another UK source saying white supremacists fund his party. And if it wasn't for social media sites like X, nobody would know about any of this, let alone a report from their own government, as their prime minister now says he wants to protect the kids, but only by banning social media.
That is why today, the government has decided to ban social media access for children under 16.
Which means all adults will need to verify social media usage with digital IDs and facial recognition. Coincidentally, also banning VPNs.
We have tried to move as quickly as possible on the main issue of the ban, so we get that big line in the sand, that big change in place as quickly as possible. We'll make further statements in July about VPNs and additional restrictions, because I think the bottom line is this, like 9 out of 10 parents who responded to our consultation want a ban. They are crying out for help. They feel every day with their children, they're faced by this tidal wave of stuff their kids are seeing. They can't keep on top of all the parental controls. They're worried about the impact on their kids' sleep, their anxiety, their concentration, the risks of what they're seeing online. So we've made that big decision.
See how they sold the social media ban by saying it's to protect the kids.
Anyways guys, that's about it for this video. Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section. आप लोग क्या सोचते हैं? And I will see you all in the next video. That's about it. Peace out.